Is it working now? Okay, I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting, May 4th, 2023, to order. It is 7:01. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Selectman Sullivan is supposed to be, is on her way and will be here. Do we have any public comment? Do we have any public comment? Yeah, the green, get a green light. And you don't have to, it'll pick you up.
Gotcha. Tim O'Neill, 1113 Roxbury Road. I'm a member of the Park and Rec Commission. I'm happy to see that the budget and the town pool was passed today. I'm gonna have to put these on. Excuse these. They're cheaters. I was disappointed that there was no discussion on the results of the survey of the pool. I'm skeptical of the $700,000 price tag put on the splash pad, but hopeful that the request for quotes will include some quotes for the splash pad, as 60% of the respondents on the survey wanted a splash pad. I'm also a member of the Southbury Historical Commission, or Committee, and I went down to see the tree dedication. Let me just give you these pictures here. Pass those down. And to my surprise, I was shocked to see that the monuments had been removed from the original place they were set at. This was supposedly where the original settlers had camped under the oak tree where it had fell down. I'm hoping we can find out on whose authority those were moved and why they were moved.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there? Joe?
Sorry. Joe Ruggiero, 245 Skyview Drive. I just wanted to say in advance that I thank you folks for doing the nonprofit assistance program, no matter who wins, because I don't know.
There's no winners or
There's
losers.
winners, win, lose, draw, whatever it is. Whoever gets what, I think it's a great program that, and I appreciate that the town decided to do it in advance of the announcement. So that's it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close that portion. We have our announcements and correspondence in front of us. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second? Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Minutes of April 20th, 2023. Can I have a motion to approve? John, second? Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes?
I watched the entire meeting, last meeting, although I missed it. I watched the whole video.
God bless you.
I am caught up.
Okay. And that's okay to vote on the meeting if you have. I'll call the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Bids and procurement on on-call engineering services. Can I have a motion? Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion on the on-call engineering? There's a routine on-call. Local companies are in there. They've all done work for us. Okay. All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Equipment rental.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second, John, thank you. This is routine. Any discussion? As you know, I just want to explain for those who may not know this, what that generally means is, we put a project together, we take the spreadsheet, looking at the price of a truck, a compactor, and a dozer, whichever one comes out to be the one that works together for that project. It's not always the lowest dozer and someone else running an excavator separate. So it's inefficient to do it that way, but that's how the formula works, so when we do the projects. All right? I'll call the vote on the equipment rental. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, and it carries. Unfinished business, Ballantine Pool, where I talked to Dan, we're still waiting for the specs to come in. He's communicating with Silver Petroselli. I'm getting some bills, so something's going on. So we'll keep on that.
Is the next step in that, I know they were doing a survey and some work over at Valentine, is that for them to prepare, like, the RFP for us to review?
Yeah, they gotta prepare, the bid specifications that we'll have for you guys to review. Hopefully by the first meeting in June, we'll have that.
They're gonna do some
Thanks, Tim.
borings and make sure.
Yeah, there's some forms and things like that.
But our basic,
John?
our basic schedule that we were originally looked at, that everything's now been
So
approved, is
far-
still on task.
Yeah, so far, we're still holding to that schedule. God willing, we'll keep at it. But they do want to do some test borings for mapping that out. All right?
Okay, thanks.
Next up, parking restrictions. Not much to go on that right now. I talked to the town attorney. Essentially, what we're doing is, we can restrict the parking. We're gonna put signs up, so it's clear, Southbury residents only. We can revisit this at the next meeting. There's a couple ways to do it. One is, we could do it through, right now, I think it says we do it through the Park and Rec, but I think we can do it with town transfer stickers, which you can get here or up at the transfer station that would be on the windshield. Some towns actually read the plate, but that requires a plate reader and some issues. Then if they do a ticket, of course, if someone comes in and proves they're a resident because they got a ticket and they didn't, we can do something with that and straighten that out. But we will, probably by the next meeting, I should have that wrapped up and get that started with restricting the parking on Little York to the spaces that are there for Southbury residents parking and up at the boat launch. And I think we're talking next couple weeks to the boat, dock, thank you for that, boy, was that hard for me or what? The dock should be there and built in, all right? Next up is Health Department. We asked for the Director of the Health District to come and talk to us about what the Health District is up to and what they're doing to move forward, and ask any questions that she may have for us. So, would you like to come up, Amy?
Hi, thank you, everyone.
Can I?
No,
Oh, she wanted me to come up, so I can't.
this is a board meeting,
Okay, I didn't know.
so no why, or, okay. That should pick your voice up pretty well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because if you're down close, it actually feedback.
Okay, I'll be good from up here then. So I have some slides. I didn't have time to send them out before the meeting. I apologize, but I just want to pass them out if that's all right. And I do have my card paper clipped as well with my cell phone number. So please, at any time, if there's any questions that you have after this meeting, feel free to reach out.
Want me to just do this? Thank you.
So I will introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Bethg, and I am the Health Director for the Housatonic Valley Health District. Thank you very much for having me come to speak with you this evening. I have been on board with the Health District for about 10 weeks now. So I may have to phone a friend in the audience for Joe. He's been with us for 30 years, so he knows a lot of the answers to questions I may not know. But I'm happy to kind of walk us through some of the items that I have prepared for you this evening. So if you take a look at the first slide, one of the items that was discussed during last board meeting was how can we be sure that this district is effective? What are the components that really make up a successful health district? So I just want to draw attention to our board of directors. We are fortunate enough to have 9 folks who are on our board of directors, and we really have a great wealth of experience in a number of different areas. I like to tell John that we kind of make each other whole because I think there are several pieces of the pie that are definitely represented here. So the relevant background and expertise of folks on our board, we have an engineer, we have a contractor builder, we have a councilman, we have a former health director, we have someone who specializes in human resources, business strategy, chairman, CEO, finance, and CEO customer champion was his previous title, which I think is really great, especially when we're talking about being a customer service business. In addition to those folks, I have to throw myself in there, and my relevant experience includes leading a team of quality managers in my past life to implement really a wide array of different quality improvement initiatives for a large New York City-based health insurance plan. In addition, in my past lives, I've generated $6.1 million in grant funds for a large healthcare system. I've done a lot of work with data, consolidating and analyzing data for numerous projects and publications, and I am also a black belt in Lean Six Sigma, which is not karate. So on the next slide, I do just want to share a couple of updates on our sanitarian staff. So unfortunately, I think a lot of the narrative that was going around in the past, because when we lost our previous health director back in February, unfortunately, we also lost a member of our sanitarian staff as well. So that was tricky for us and definitely led to some understaffing on our part. But I am optimistic going forward that we will not have some of these concerns because we're really in the process of staffing back up now. So in addition to Joe, who has been our chief sanitarian for 30 years, as I mentioned, we have another sanitarian on staff. His name is AJ, and he is able to do a number of the activities that Joe is able to do. Joe can explain this a little bit further if we have any questions that he can address. The one item that AJ is not able to do is signing off on engineered plans, so that responsibility does fall on Joe. In addition to Joe and AJ, we also have a contract sanitarian. His name is Jeff Andrews, and he has been really, really great kind of filling in some of the gaps as we need him over the past couple of months. In addition, just ever since, it's really kind of a COVID, product of COVID, I guess you could say, there has really been an increased need for sanitarians. So fortunately, because Joe is so connected in the industry, there's a wide pool of sanitarians that he can pull from. He knows a lot of folks. So if we do need to contract with additional people, they are available to us. In addition, over the past week, 2 updates that we're very excited to announce is we have recently offered a position which was accepted. This individual will start with us on June 1st. And she will be primarily our food inspector, but she'll be able to do some of the other sanitarian responsibilities as well, reviewing non-engineered construction plans, foodborne outbreak investigation complaints, daycares, salons, pools, lead, food inspections, soil testing, and plan reviews. In addition, because we are seeing a lot of the issues with the marketplace right now, something that our board had identified as a potential solve for that is to create kind of a pipeline or hybrid position. So what that means is we're hiring someone currently to function as an environmental health administrator. They'll be able to do a lot of the administrative components of the environmental health side of the house. And in addition, this individual does have his phase 1 certifications for being a sanitarian, and we'll be working with him to get the rest of his credentials as well. So that will be helpful for us certainly moving forward. And then last but not least, I had to include myself again. So I don't currently have any of the credentials that a sanitarian does need, but I will be going to get my phase 1 certification in the fall, and then phase 2 immediately after in winter, so I will be able to function in that capacity as well. So on our next slide, I just wanted to draw attention to the funding structure. So as we know, we have a number of towns in our health district currently, and the way that per capita is accounted for each of these towns is by population size. So our per capita is the same throughout the district at 1071 in the budgets that were just approved. And congratulations for getting your budget approved last night as well. We currently have, with the addition of Sharon, 76,815 individuals in the district, and that brings our total funding to $822,688.65. Just 2 items that are worthy of note in this slide. Sharon, the population is just over 2,600, so 2,675, and the town of Sharon has 15 restaurants. These were some of the factors that we took into account when we made the decision, or the board made the decision to vote to include Sharon in the district. And because of those 2 aspects, it was decided that the lift would not be too severe or anything that we could not handle. So on the next slide, you'll see the state contribution per capita. So really where we generate revenue as a health district, we have our per capita from each of the towns that comes in, the per capita from the state that comes in, and then the fees as well. When we were building our budget for this year, we estimated the state per capita. We will not get that official per capita from the state until June, but we estimated that to be at about 2.43, so $2.43. Which brings the total for the district to $186,660.45. So on the next slide, we can see, so in addition to those 3 sources of revenue that I mentioned, so that town per capita, the state per capita, and then the fee structure, grant funding is another big driver of revenue for our district as well. And grants from the state are often population-based. We're seeing this as with a couple of different grants that the state has indicated will come through to us in the next year. Districts that have more population get more funding. That's typically how those grants work. All towns within a population census of 10,000 or less and a population density of 500 people or less per square mile are designated as rural. As you see by this map, we have 3 rural communities that are currently in the district, and oftentimes, coming from my grants background and what I've heard from speaking with folks at the state as well, rural grants are less competitive, which allows us to qualify for those a little bit easier. So on the next slide, we can move to service quality. So this is just kind of the beginning of our tracking of our quality of service for all of our data that is available to us as a health district. So when we're looking at environmental health, we have a number of different components that go into that. We have the items that are listed here, such as soil testing, permit to construct, building applications, wells, change of use applications, subsurface sewage disposal plan reviews. And then on the other side, we also have our food inspection fees and our food inspection activities. So we are in the process really of building a data dashboard so we can better identify and showcase how we're performing for these various items. What we have right now, and looking back about a year, because that's really how our data has been tracked. Unfortunately, I don't have too much data prior to that time period. But from March of last year, so March 22 through April 23, the average days to completion for soil testing was 1. For permit to construct was 2.2, building applications 3.5, wells 4.4, change of use 5 days, and subsurface sewage disposal plan reviews 8.8. It's difficult to sometimes get state averages, but what I've seen from other health districts across the state was typically before COVID, folks were giving a state average of 5 to 10 days. And since COVID, it's really kind of bumped up just because of a lot of shortages that are occurring across the state with those sanitarian folks. It has bumped up to 7 to 10 days. So for these metrics, we are within those ranges, but that being said, we're always gonna have outliers. So we definitely have to make sure that we're identifying those outliers and we're building productive ways to make sure we're handling and addressing those outliers. And in addition, I really want to make sure that as we go forward, we have a more robust data dashboard and more robust data process to pull from moving forward. So in addition to environmental health, community health is a big part of what we do at Housatonic Valley Health District. A number of the different things that we're offering currently is a series called Healthy Chats with Heidi. This is really a roundtable discussion where Heidi, who is our chief nurse supervisor, goes to senior centers, goes to assisted living facilities, and has conversations with folks in the community. What's really nice about this program is, in addition to talking about things like blood pressure, chronic disease, Heidi kind of polls the folks that she's speaking to and asks them what may be helpful for her to speak about going forward. So they can really kind of create whatever they want from this healthy chat conversation, and Heidi, with her area of expertise, is able to speak to the topics that these folks identify. Some others that she's done in the past have been tick-borne illness as well. In addition, Heidi does monthly blood pressure clinics at Grace Meadows, Heritage Village, and Southbury Senior Center. She runs a childhood immunization program as well, and currently about 15 to 20 children are vaccinated per month. This is really growing, and as more folks are aware that we are a resource for receiving childhood vaccinations, we're able to provide more and more, which has been really great. What's important about this program is that it is federally funded, so it's free to us, and we're able to give out these vaccines to children really just for the cost of Heidi's time. In addition, Living a Healthy Life with Chronic Conditions is a class that Heidi is currently taking herself. And once she completes the 6-week training course, she will be able to deliver a chronic disease self-management class to folks. And just some other things that we're doing in the world of community health. There are plans in place to hire a grant-funded LPN later this year. In addition, we have the ability to request that our team attend health fairs on our website. So if you have a school health fair, if there's a community, something going on in the community that you would like our team to attend and table at, we are happy to do that. In the future, we're hoping to offer Narcan training, CPR training, and medication authorization classes for daycares and camps. So really the key takeaway from this next slide is that we're a customer service business. And I know that you folks certainly identify with that. So some of the continuous improvement efforts that we would like to implement going forward, as I mentioned, is that data dashboard. I think if we can get to a place where we're really providing robust data to folks on a monthly basis, we'll be able to really quickly identify where our pain points are and establish how we can solve those quickly going forward. In addition, revision of forms, in discussions with some folks. Actually, I've met with a number of folks across Southbury over the last couple of weeks, and those meetings have been really productive. We've identified a number of issues with forms in our department, so working to revise those just to make sure they're more customer and community member friendly. We're also working towards implementing online fillable forms. It's about half and half that we're seeing right now between folks who actually want to come into an office and fill out a form versus folks who would prefer to do it online. So the fact that we will have both available will be helpful. In addition, we will have links on our Housatonic Valley Health District site to the town hall website for additional forms if they're required by other departments. So we often overlap with building and zoning and some other departments as well. So it will be helpful to just make sure that we can essentially bring community members through that process in a more seamless way. We also worked on recently and just implemented, I'm happy to say, satisfaction surveys. So we have hard copies of those satisfaction surveys. We also have those surveys available by QR code and on our website. And right now, those surveys are really limited to routine immunization, flu, and in-office service. But of course, we're able to expand those as needed going forward as well. In addition, I've had a lot of recent meetings with town departments and teams across the district. And again, those have been really, really productive. I'm happy to have, really robust conversation about a number of the different topics and honestly pain points as they've been made aware to me, and it's been really helpful to discuss those with folks. Something that is recent, so we'll see if this works well or if we maybe need to change our approach, is the implementation of the Slack tool. So we've been using that with a couple of different folks actually from Southbury, and it just kind of provides us with an easier way to communicate with one another. If there is ever a question that someone has, and maybe they'll bring it to the zoning department, maybe building, and they're not able to answer it as it pertains to the health district, they can just quickly send us a Slack message and I can get back to them and respond. We are also working on a newsletter, so we're hoping to have that. Our goal date is September for the first edition of our newsletter, and we're working on a constituent handbook as well. So for all towns across the district, something that I've heard is they're not aware of all of the programs that we do provide. So just making sure we have some type of information that we can give to folks so they're able to quickly reference the services that we provide. And then the next couple slides are opportunities. So as we look at some of the resources that are available to us, we have a number of different items that we can pull from for population data. So when we're looking, I'm just going to zoom in so I can see these charts myself. But when we're looking at our study area, Southbury is, I've seen it looped into Waterbury in some instances. I've seen it looped into Danbury in some instances. But really, I think the best way to kind of showcase the town of Southbury is comparing it to the communities directly around it. So we'll see that Puma area is a public use micro area, and that's how data is presented for the towns that Southbury borders. So we can take a look, we can see the data for Connecticut, we can see the data for that Puma area, and then for the town of Southbury as well. And this really kind of paints a nice picture for us when we're looking at population, households, home ownership rate, housing cost burden rate is important to take a look at, and really what that means is the percentage of folks who are spending more than 30% of their income on housing, adults with less than a high school diploma, median household income rate, poverty rate, life expectancy, and adults without health insurance. And that next chart there is housing cost burden rate by race, ethnicity in that area. And then on our next slide here, we have the population living below poverty level. So although it's not a large percentage of the population here in Southbury, I believe, as we would expect in looking at this data, there is that 5% number. So there are certainly folks that we want to be working with when we're looking at folks who may have needs and are below the poverty level. In addition to that piece of data, we have households receiving food stamps, and SNAP are involved in the SNAP program. I had a nice conversation with the social services director about some of the services that she provides in terms of helping folks fill out those SNAP applications, and how we can kind of streamline that approach as well. The next, and I've seen this happening kind of in a number of different scenarios. In my past life, as I mentioned, I was an employee of a large health insurance plan in New York City. We also worked with folks in Connecticut, and we are seeing across the board, unfortunately, after COVID, that there is a pretty substantial increase in folks who are experiencing anxiety and depression. So fortunately for Southbury, depression wasn't too high. It was only 1%, so that's really great news. But we do see a little bit of an increase in the anxiety, the percentage of folks who are experiencing anxiety. So that's that 12% number there.
This is state data?
This is.
Okay, thanks.
So really the reason why I wanted to include the data in there is to highlight some of the opportunities of where we can go as a district. What's nice about being a health district and a health department as well is when we're looking at a lot of the environmental aspects of the business, it's really pertains a lot to statute. So a lot of those items are regulated. There's a lot of things we have to do. But when we move into the community service side of the business, there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of ways we can be flexible and really make sure we're implementing what we need for specific community members. So that's just some of the data that we can use in order to start that process. But I would really like to continue to work with folks in the town of Southbury. So again, social services, the senior center. We actually just started to form a community task force. We'll be meeting for our first time in a couple weeks, and I think that will be helpful to continue to identify some of these opportunities as well. And on the last slide, I just wanted to include the phone number that we can be reached at and also our address. We are there 5 days a week from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays from 8:30 to 2 p.m.
Okay, you're set, right, with the presentation? Okay, I didn't know if you were happy. I think we're at the end. So it was requested of the board that Amy come and there were questions or concerns, so I would open it up to the board. If you have concerns you want to ask Amy anything about.
Yeah, I'd like to start. Just a couple things. First, I'll start with when you share metrics information like quality of service data, this stuff feels like a partnership to me. I love to see this stuff. I think I speak for others on the board that, to me, this is the type of information that we're looking for. It feels like the start of an organization that's tracking its key performance indicators. And then I just made a note, please keep us updated on performance data. It's so important. It helps us kind of gauge things and keep things in perspective, really. So that I thought was awesome to see. The other thing was, and I think you're fairly up to speed on our frustrations and whatnot. So my question is, when the board of directors, and this kind of speaks to process, and just wanted to get your take on it. When the board of directors has any vote that they need to make, what will you do to change what at least is perceived past practice to allow our reps ample time to discuss issues and votes with our town leadership?
Absolutely. I think that's a really great question. So something that I've implemented, but I think there's perhaps definitely an opportunity in this area, right? So I've been sending out weekly emails to all of our board members and all of our CEOs as well, with updates about the district. What I would like to do going forward is if there is a big vote coming up, whether it's budgetary, whether it's, something like adding another town, which I don't foresee in the near future, I do want to make sure that that is broadcast, so folks do have time to have that conversation with their boards, whoever they need to bring that information back to, so we can have a productive discussion.
Thank you. I know I'm counting on you for that. Thanks.
Absolutely.
First of all, I just want to thank you for coming, because I know that obviously, we've had some challenges in the past, and that is in no way, shape, or form reflective of you and your time here. It's a clean slate, so I'm very appreciative of your time and that you're willing to come and chat with us tonight. I have a question about the dashboard that you're building to start tracking those metrics. One of the frustrations that I had is when I asked about, well, how many applied to our town? How many cases did we have in our town?
Yeah.
I was never given any answers. Would that dashboard, is that internal only? Is that something we would get on an annual basis? Like, kind of what would be your plan to give us that feedback?
That's a great question. So the data that I presented here is actually just for Southbury. So what I would like to do is have a town-specific data dashboard, and my goal is to really share that on a monthly basis.
Great, awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's interesting, or it will be interesting to see, is each town having similar metrics to other towns? And I think that's part of what makes the district work, is that, it's balanced. And I think that that's important, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, I do have one other question. The Healthy Chat with Heidi, how is she providing that? Is it virtual? Is it in person?
So that's a great question, too. She is doing it in person right now.
Okay.
We are considering the opportunity of doing it virtual as well, just because I think some folks prefer that. So we can certainly have that available in a virtual forum, but she is in person right now.
Thank you.
Justin?
I thought it was an impressive presentation, so I thank you for that. Looking forward to working with you moving forward. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
So, I think bouncing off, I think what Holly might have said. So when you show quality of service data, and I think that looks cool, and great to see it, whether it's on a dashboard that we can just look at, or quarterly, or monthly, or whatever. But just having it, just a little bit more data as far as,
Absolutely.
like, when I see, and I'm just gonna bounce off of some of the criticism we've heard in the last couple of meetings. So one of them might be that permits took 10 days, 20 days, whatever period of time.
Yeah.
So when I see that the average is 2.2, I'm just not seeing the reflection of, well, were there, and I'll make up some numbers, 20 that were in a day, 25 that were in 2.2 days, and then 10 that were at 25 days or 30 days. So
Yeah.
just seeing what the min-maxes are
Yeah,
on
that's
those
a great
numbers,
idea.
and then what the counts were.
Yeah.
So then, at least if there's a few customers, we'll call them that, who are in at 20 or 30 days, and there's a noticeable boom, they got hit, and there's a reason or a backup or something to it, or, and in that dashboard, whether they can see where their permit is in the process,
Yeah.
then that will enhance the customer service 100%. So I love this, and I'd love to see it, just a little bit more data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bouncing a little bit off of, again, some of the critique we heard in the past. So the idea that whether we have hours in Southbury, and I see you posted the hours here, but what can the community expect to find there as far as staff and what their knowledge is and what their abilities are?
That's a great question. So more soon is my answer. Right now, we do have desk staff there. So we have our office manager is in our Southbury office permanently. We do have an individual who does some emergency preparedness work as well. What we certainly need is, a lot of times people come in and they're really looking for that sanitarian perspective or that sanitarian to answer their question, which is tough because those folks are, often doing their job in the field. So what we have implemented at some of our other sites, because our presence there is not, 5 days a week, every day, is specific office hours where folks will know that there 100% will be a sanitarian who's there. So I think that's something we can certainly look at for Southbury as well. So, our office hours will continue to be 8:30 to 4:30, but if you come, from 2 to 4, there will be a sanitarian there.
And I think publishing that or posting that will be very helpful. I know somebody from, like myself, from the construction industry. I know that, like, when you're looking for a building inspector, you don't show up at 11 or 1 or 2 o'clock because they're out in the field doing their work. But if you want to find a building inspector, you show up at 8:30 in the morning. 'Cause that's when they're, putting their day together. And so if there's those kind of hints, or they can just be posted, that would be fabulous. And I did have, so, and it was another critique earlier in the past, as far as immunizations and why are we doing it if it's costing us. So the immunization's no cost to the taxpayer.
So there are some nuances there, so I want to make sure this is clear. So there is, it's a VCF program, which means vaccinations for children. That is a federally funded program, and as a part of that program, children are vaccinated free of charge. When we're looking at COVID vaccines, in the past, that was really supported by the state, obviously because COVID was such an emergent issue that the need was really there. Moving forward, it's anticipated that that will not be the case. So we have to consider what the priorities are of the district. Flu vaccine is another one that falls into that area. I think there are some things we can do to look closer at what the cost associated with that vaccine or those vaccines are, so we can, put together a plan that everyone is on the same page for.
That's great, thank you. And I'll just, and I held it for last, I'm sorry, I did want to ask. So the housing cost, and just because that's on a different conversation topic here also, you'd mentioned in that one chart that it was, let me see, I circled it here. Is that the housing cost burden rate, that 34% for Southbury?
So
That's housing cost greater than 30% of their income.
So are you looking at the table on the right or the chart on the left?
Table on the left.
Table on the left, okay. So sorry, that's 36% for Connecticut, 34% for Southbury is the housing cost burden rate. And if we look over to the right at the table, the way we can make those two things make sense together, that 20 plus that 13% severely cost burden and cost burden. So if we add those, it's 33. So I'm imagining it was probably 33 and change, rounded up to 34.
Gotcha, thank you. And then, just that I'm feeling very comfortable with the presentation, what you're talking about, having these metrics that we can look at and measure and kind of compare where we're going and compare against other member towns. But to hear, like, that you're using Slack, I mean, anybody that's going into an engineering office with recent graduates and, knows what Slack is and knows that it's a great thing and that you can all kind of communicate and get together. And so I'm thrilled to see this data and this information. So thank you.
You all set?
Yeah.
Jason?
Thanks. So Amy, thanks for being here. I thought the presentation was very helpful and informative and is going to be helpful going forward. I think communication is so important, and I think there has clearly been historically a communication breakdown in recent years. So I think this is a helpful dialogue and one that I think we should do regularly to understand where the district is, what's being provided, where it's going, and address any issues as well and identify them on the front end so we can have productive discussion about how we can work together to make sure we can find appropriate solutions. So I thank you for being here and for doing that tonight. I'll echo what others said about the service chart. I think it's everyone's favorite chart that you provided. So that's very helpful, and I'll echo what was said about ways that we can improve it and get more data from it. And identify, more particularly what we're talking about. And I understand you have limited data to work with, but I think this will probably be a very important tool for all of us going forward in the months ahead. One of my questions about the chart was, so I see the average days to complete. Oh, and obviously, with these sorts of things, you said there's outliers.
Yep.
In the positions we all sit in, that's all we hear about is the outliers, right? So we don't, people don't call us up when, oh, hey, got my permit quick and health department's doing a great job. We hear about those things.
Absolutely.
So it's important for us also to have all of the data
Yep.
so that we can appropriately respond to that or direct or identify what that issue might be, why that outlier may exist.
Yep.
So you presented sort of the state averages pre and post-COVID. I'm just wondering if we internally have identified or set any goals for ourselves by which we can measure the data and determine where we are and how we feel about the level of service and where we would like the level of service to be.
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. So that we can probably have that as a topic for our board to discuss going forward, or in our next couple of board meetings. So we can work to take a look at the data as it is currently in raw form, so we're able to see those outliers, and then identify what makes sense for the district or town-specific if we want to do that for, although it should probably be the same, for averages and goals.
Okay, thank you. And then you went through the staff. That was all very helpful, and I understand you had some new hires, new people coming on to assist. Are you anticipating any other sort of staff movements or the things you're looking to achieve, or that you looking to bring in more personnel, or are you where you want to be currently for the next number of months or so?
So I think that will depend on where we are once we kind of get settled with those two new folks who are coming on. I would like to reassess once, maybe we're a month or two down the road when those folks have been part of the department. Fortunately, both of those folks are not new to the field. These are experienced individuals, so I anticipate that they'll be able to jump right in and do a good job. But after a couple months of having them on board, we can certainly reassess if we need that.
And then my only other question is you mentioned Sharon, and there was some allusion to Sharon. We see Sharon, it's far away, right? It takes a long time to get to. Can you just describe how the district intends to take on those services with the current, staffing in place, and explain how that will or will not have an impact or rub elsewhere in the district?
Absolutely. So when we're looking at Sharon, what we have promised to them is to give them a portion or a few hours a day, or a week rather, for office hours. So because we will only be going up there once a week, when we're talking about costs that are related to servicing Sharon's, such as mileage and things like that, it really limits the cost burden only going up there once a week to perform those services. Again, it is a smaller town, so there's 2,675 individuals who are in that town, and there's only about 15 restaurants. So again, the lift isn't expected to be substantial, and we are receiving the benefit of getting some financial income that can offset some other costs. So one of the items that we did put some of those, or some of that income to rather, is that hybrid role that I mentioned for our sanitarian staff. So we're able to offset some of that salary with the income from Sharon. So we've found that to be a beneficial use of those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
You all set?
I'm all set.
Very good. Okay. This is all very nice. So my first question is, could you explain the difference between the chief sanitarian and sanitarian one? Sanitarian one can do engineered plans, construction plans, and the sanitarian two can do non-engineered construction. Can you clarify what that construction is? Is that the buildings?
So it is building additions. Again, I would ask Joe to come up if we would allow him, because he's done this for 30 years. I am very well versed in the community health side of the house, the grant side of the house. Environmental is new to me, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that in a way that would present necessarily all of the correct information. So I would want to make sure you are able to get the correct information.
Okay, so I would like to have that, Joe, could you come up and clarify what that means by, because I'm a little confused, and I'm sure you just don't know. We have a building inspector who inspects our buildings and then the commercial buildings. So what is it that the engineered plans for construction that would be inspected, or non-engineered plans for construction?
Engineered plans are basically anything with a stamp on it, okay? I'm the only one as of now, because I'm an RS, the registered sanitarian, okay? I can approve those plans. AJ, that's the other sanitarian on our staff right now, he does not have his RS yet. He's actually going in 2 weeks to take the test. So I have to approve those plans, he cannot yet. So basically, I'm the only one on staff that can do engineered review plans. Am I making sense to you? I'm not being silly, am I or no? Am I explaining that?
I don't, I mean, you were talking the construction plans?
Not construction, new construction home, I'm gonna go that way.
Okay.
I'm reviewing the septic well location, I'm not reviewing the actual structure of the house.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, then,
That's what I didn't
oh,
understand.
I'm sorry, no, it's just the septic part.
Okay.
And of course, the well and everything else, we have to look at.
Okay. So my other question is, I'm trying to, kind of curious, having been in the field in this industry, what's comparable, how many septic plans come through today that are not engineered? 2 to 1, 4 to 1,
I'm gonna go 60-40 engineered,
60-40?
and that's a ballpark, but I think I'm probably, if you had to look it up,
No,
I'm
that's-
probably close.
That makes sense. I mean, in my experience, most of the time, there's most everything today, when you do your deeps and perks and you check out for a home, ends up being some sort of sometimes it's a complicated engineered plan, sometimes it's just a simple engineered plan,
Unless you're lucky, you get good dirt.
and sometimes you get lucky, but
Yeah.
not quite always. And also depends on how much area you have to
Exactly.
cover.
Smaller lots are tougher.
So, okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The other thing I was looking on from Amy, when you give this population data and comparison, most of the area circled is north of us. And there are many towns, if you look at the line, southwest of us. What would make the difference if that was what you decided to circle? Is there a reason why you circled north and not the rest of the area? Because we do identify with Newtown, with Brookfield, with New Fairfield, a lot of these other areas we're a kind of an interesting place. We're New Haven County, but we're Litchfield County, and we're Fairfield County right together.
Yeah.
So what thought process would be that and I'll be honest with you, my concern is, and I've expressed this, is this district moving north? Is that the plan, or is there a reason you didn't look at the southwest?
So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked, because this is a question that I've asked myself a lot of times when I've looked at the data. So this is a tough area when we're looking at state data. And the same can actually be said for Oxford and Woodbury as well. Because it is centrally located to a lot of larger regions, so it's pretty close to Waterbury, it's close to Danbury, it's close to a lot of Newtown and Brookfield and other towns, as you mentioned. It's oftentimes looped in with a number of these other towns and to show a consolidation of the data on the state level. So this is not data that I created. This is not a chart that I created. What I did was every year on a 3-year cycle, hospital systems around the state release something called a community health needs assessment. And because we're, near a number of different hospitals, Waterbury Hospital does this, Danbury Hospital does this, New Vance Health, Griffin Hospital does this as well. Where these community health needs assessments, where that data is sourced from is an entity called Data Haven. And this is a company that was created, I don't want to misspeak, I would estimate about 10 years ago. And they are really the big resource for obtaining data across the state. So this is how they decided to group Southbury. I think certainly if we want to take a look at other comparisons, we can draw comparisons with Newtown, we can draw comparisons with other towns. Because this is one of the most widely circulated reports, this is the one I selected, but that's certainly not to say it's the only one.
Well, I think it needs to be clear how come that, and I asked the question because there it is. What precludes us from, we identify it's a very odd place to be in Southbury. It's a very, and would that skew data to an individual's desire to get what they want by making it up above? And of course, I've questioned a number of times, is this district moving north? And in the circle that goes there, you see Southbury is very, except for Oxford, is very far south on that.
So I'll answer that question just with a couple of different items. So one is, certainly we can compare. I don't think the data is skewed when we're looking at this because we're looking at the state, then we're looking at this, again, this Puma area is not one that I created. It's one that was created by Data Haven in the state to group a number of towns together, and then we're looking at Southbury. What I can certainly do is dig further into this data and add Newtown on there, add whatever other towns we want to include. So we can get a comparison or a better picture at kind of all of those towns together. But to answer your last question regarding the intent of the district, so is the intent to move north? Honestly, at this point, I can't tell you what the intent is because I don't know. It really goes back to where the opportunities present themselves. The health director in Sharon was retiring. The opportunity presented itself. Members of the board thought it would be a good fit. So that was a town that, and then they had voted to join us. So then we wanted to vote either to include them or not, but to have a vote because they had voted to join us. So going forward, I think it would just depend where the opportunity presented itself.
So on that, my concern, and I expressed it to you in my office about Sharon, my biggest concern was to stabilize this district so that we had the services, we knew we were in place, we had staffing in place before it took on any other towns. And frankly, I don't think we were in that position. I don't think this district was in a position to take another town on, whether we liked to or wanted to or presented itself, because of the turmoil that we've had from the takeover from the beginning with New Milford and where we are now. That was my concern, is that we stabilize this. $1 per capita, as board knows, $1 up, $1 down, moves our needle it doesn't move our needle on our, it really doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's the quality of service. We just passed a budget by the 3-to-1 margin, which is the people feel they're getting the quality of service from the town that justifies passing the budget, including the school budget. Mm-hmm. So my concern is that regardless of what the per capita is and what the effect would be by Sharon not joining, which is a moot point now, if that equated to 50 cents, as I said, we hear from the outliers, we hear from the people who are like, what the heck is going on? And we're saying, well, we saved 50 cents on roughly 20,000 people. They're like, are you kidding me? So that's my concern. I've expressed that in my office. I've expressed it to others, and frankly, I feel ignored. Sharon came on. There's nothing we can do about it now, and I will express it again. Until we have data, until we have the people in place, until we can know we can handle this without reducing our services here in Southbury. I would hope that the district does not add any more people until we know this district is stable and in place. And frankly, it's not stable. I mean, this is by trying to hire these people, and I get it, we have trouble, you know, I get it. It's hard to get people, and it's hard to get, and get a plan in place. That's my hope as we go forward from here, that's what this district is looking to do.
So if I can comment on that, I think where we can find ourselves in a little trouble, right, is when we're not quantifying what these statements mean, right? So in the past, I know what the board had discussed and what this group had discussed was improvement in quality services. You're going to get more services, but that was never really quantified. So what exactly does that mean? And I think it really speaks to setting goals going forward to make sure we know what this means now. We can get there, and it's a number that makes sense. So then I think that speaks to stability as well. So, you know, it's open to interpretation, I think, at this point. I may think it's stable, you may think it's not stable. So what does stability mean? So I think that's another term that we need to define before we can move forward in that conversation.
I think stability is asking the CEOs of the town, do you believe, are the services being delivered, and is it? And the answer for us was no. And we've had that discussion with the planning, land use department, and some others with our social services. That means we need to address it. And I frankly don't really matter if everybody else seems to think it's okay. Here it's not working. It wasn't working. Perhaps it is. Going forward, it will work. I know I've been pretty rough, but I'm here to represent the people of this town.
Absolutely.
Purely. I have no other interest except for this town. And that's why I think the question is, how are you doing? Are things being addressed? Are things in a good place? This was not asked before joining Sharon. And I think that was, the board was also questioning what we're hearing and why this happened. So we'll look forward to these improvements. Again, I will express my opinion that nothing gets added, no other towns be added, no matter what the opportunity that presents itself, until we have data that shows, or I can say to this board, and they can say, we can expand because we have the capacity to do it. Joe's been doing as much of a job as he can. I know he's been working his tail off even before. I know that. And, but again, any addition to what was, I think, his capacity puts more on him. So my hope is that that's what we're doing. On the dash, on the data, my question is, those numbers, is that from application, from submission to, I mean, like one day? I mean, someone submits it one day and next day it's approved.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, I mean, I just didn't need someone saying, well, it was submitted, I've been, not health department, but, well, it was submitted, but we didn't look at it until, and that's when the time
No,
started.
100%, yeah,
We pulled away from the gate, but we didn't fly, okay? So you know, everybody here knows what that means. I need to know from the time it's submitted.
Yep.
And I will, yes, I agree, we are working with our third floor, with our permitting process, trying to make sure there's more information in there, links to what they need to do for their permits, and I think that's the type of thing would make me feel more comfortable than what happened. Love the people in Sharon, they're wonderful people, drive up there a lot, had somebody I knew up there, that's great. But they're not my problem. It wasn't my problem. And we made a deal for New Milford and Washington with special favors, special rates, more than what the rest of the district, they should have been told, this is what the district charges, you will be charged the same thing. We need to entice them in. We don't need to entice anybody in. They want to join us because it's betterment for their community. They should come in and accept the rates for what they are. And that was not you, but that was the board. And that really sticks in my craw about that. So I'm hoping that from here forward, we are moving forward, and I'm certainly hope that that special rates doesn't happen again for a new, if they don't want to join, they don't have to join, as far as I'm concerned, but that's, I'm not a board member.
So, just to answer that, the fee structure is, will be the same for all towns, starting July 1.
I would hope so, because I think that would become a catastrophic. I think the board would admit that that would be catastrophic. We would be immediately making decisions on that. I will say this publicly. It's still up to the board of whether we are going to consider leaving this district. This does not mean by any means that we're okay. I think we are cautiously optimistic is what I'm hearing here. We are financially capable of leaving. It's not what I would like to see, but I just would like to make sure that Southbury and the people in Southbury are getting the services equal to and the same as what we had. At least that. All right? Any other questions for anybody else? John?
Yeah, just, and one would be for Joe, just to follow up on engineered versus non-engineered. Can you, just an example of what a non-engineered would be?
Basically, it's soil conditions. There's certain conditions you have to meet to go into engineering, okay? So if you have modeling, that's an indicator of groundwater.
And the perk rate?
If you have modeling 18 inches, that's going to be an engineered system. So a professional engineer has to draw it up, and I have to review it. But let's say you're lucky you're living on Lake Zor, okay? Bank run gravel, okay? You can draw it up yourself. We got a little checklist. You can actually draw it, and then I can.
So it's soil conditions, the right soil conditions are there, you just know that it's
You know,
happening.
perk, if the perk's too high, there's other things also, you know, ledge rock, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, but that's what it would be.
Cool.
And again, that's, those, those are minimum standards. When I did my house, it was 4 60-foot trenches, and I put 4 75s in,
Well, that's up to you.
because I had the room to do it. But yeah,
Of course, you go bigger, why not?
yeah, why
I
not?
don't mind too. I
Why
would.
not?
Can I say something, you guys? I've been your sanitarian for 30 years. If there's any issues, just call me. I'm being totally straight with you. I've been here 30 years with you guys. I love this town, okay? Just call me, say, Joe, what the hell's going on? Can you fix it? I'm gonna be totally straight with you. I don't get calls, so please call me, guys. Everybody's got my cell. Don't be afraid to call me. Say, Joe, what's going on? Are you screwing up? Just talk to me, okay? That's the best I can say to you guys. Okay.
Well, so that was actually going to be my a follow-up question for Jeff. I think the last time we talked, were the list of problems that we saw from a couple different groups, were they forwarded on to the health district so that they could kind of look at the
Yeah, our
individual?
concerns were put forward, and I'm a little offended by one of the board members from New Milford who suggested that what I asked was coerced. And I do not coerce any of my department heads, nor I don't think they're coercible people.
And the one simpler one I'm thinking about, and
There are
it would
simple
be a
issues
question
that
to.
needed to be addressed,
Right.
and they needed to make sure.
I was
that
like, the one I was
they
going to ask about
understood
is
what it
like the one that was a pool application that was submitted on, hand sketch, not to scale. And,
That
was that
continues to be an issue.
resolved or
No.
just?
But are we talking about the above-ground pool?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally fine, guys.
Totally
The
what?
person has a right to come in and submit, it doesn't have to be to scale, okay? Because now we're gonna ask them, it's gonna cost a little more money, they might have to hire a surveyor. I go and I do my own scale from the assessor's card and measure out. So we're actually doing a service to the people of Southbury or the other towns also. So you can go to look at our records. So I'm just saying, it's 66 feet away, the above-ground pool's gotta be 10 feet. Yeah, everything's fine in that, okay? I'm totally
On
down
his
with that.
side.
Okay.
On his side, and I think that's where the confusion lies, and that's what we're trying to work with Amy on, making links that it's very clear to, we have a lot of people moving in that have come from places where there's not these kind of regulations. They may be the city or whatever.
You're right about that.
Right.
You are.
So we're trying to make it so that it's clear, because somebody comes in and they say, you need to go to the health department, and they say, okay, to get, and they get a permit, so here's your permit. They believe that that's the end of it. So we're trying to make sure that it's clear that there are certain things that need to be done and certain regulations, because it's not that clear. And, but I'm not going to discuss that whole thing here in public.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's thrown out in public that it was a problem that the health district caused, but at the end of the day, it's,
But I wouldn't really say it was a health district caused it. It was just, we're trying to make it so that it's clear, because we're really the same company, but not the same. So they're trying to help with the permitting process, which we're working on forms and links
Yeah.
and so that it could be more clear. Because honestly, some homeowners feel, and some can, get through the process without a problem. Some do not have, I mean, like when you talk about deeps and perks, I've been through all that, understand all that. You're gonna have another person who's gonna say, what do you mean regulated areas, setbacks, what do you mean wetlands? And people are moving here and they have a an acre lot and they think it's a large piece of property, and there's a lot of constraints on property that they don't understand, and most of that constraint is because of public health, septics, reserve systems.
so the point being is that, like, and I heard the health department is sharing links so that they know that not only is there this permit, but
We're
there is
working on
also a Town of Southbury Building Department permit, and here's the link, and here's the needs, and
Yeah.
this is who you also have to talk to. So, so it's basically working through some growing pains and getting there, but it's
Right.
it's manageable. Just one quick question on the Puma. So, and when I was looking at Puma and then that dark blue with the green, so Southbury is not included in the Puma numbers.
So I believe it's, let me just take a,
I think it is.
so, I think it is too, you're right, it's tough to tell based on this chart. There's much more information on the page that I pulled this graph off of, so let me follow up with you. I believe it is included in the Puma region, just based on the other information that I read from this page, but I will certainly follow up with you on that.
Because the blue and the green on the chart to the right are not the same blue and the green to the chart to the left. The blue, dark blue represents Southbury, but in the chart on the right, the dark blue represents severely cost burden.
Yes, I think, so just to give you kind of where these charts and maps came from, those were pulled from two different pages of the same document. So I think there wasn't consistency at that point between the color scheme of the map and the color scheme in the chart. So I'm happy to send you this document in whole, so you can take a look at that. I think these are showing kind of two separate things. So again, I believe Southbury is included, but I can certainly double check.
Right, but those study areas, so like Puma represents, in the way I'm just reading the map, is the green outlined towns. Southbury was an individual town outlined in blue. And then, but from the state, wherever this data came from, are additional tables that are gonna show other outlined. So if we wanted to pick other communities or other areas or the whole Route 84 corridor, we can pick up whatever numbers we want.
Exactly.
These are just the ones you chose, the one Puma you chose.
So, let me say this, just to kind of clarify. The document that I pulled this from was each town in Connecticut has its own data document, essentially. So it's just a number of different charts like this, graphs like this, pages of information, which is actually, it's really helpful as we're looking at community data. The one for Southbury specifically, this is the Puma area that was included. So it wasn't by my choice, but again, if you're looking at different reports from different agencies, they're gonna include different areas.
Gotcha. So we would almost want to, like, if we just wanted to see what the area looks like to the southwest, we might just pick Newtown's map
Yeah,
and
exactly.
see what Puma area they selected.
Exactly.
And then we can kind of say, hey, you know what, we relate more to Newtown than these other towns, so we can look at that group area and see, and maybe pick from a couple different, or even average them ourselves.
Yep, 100%.
Cool. So you can point us in the right direction for where this
Yes,
data is.
absolutely. I'll send you a couple different ones from towns around the area.
Thank you.
The only final thing I think is final for me, I would like, I'm on the Slack tool. In the event of an FOI, that information will be retained, available?
So that's a good question. I think we have to be careful with how we're using Slack. So the way I had intended to use it, but I think this is definitely a continuing conversation that we need to have when we're using Slack, is to just have someone from a department ping me and say, hey, Amy, I have someone here with a complaint. Can you check your email? So it's just, it can go to my phone, they can share some more information about the complaint. I don't want information through Slack saying, you know, Mrs. Jones at X address has this issue. I don't think it should be that specific. But I think it can help us kind of get a hold of each other a little bit more easily. Again, this is very much like early stages of implementing Slack, so I think we'll have to think through those things. And certainly this is a good point that you're raising with FOI, so I can look into that.
So if you could keep in communications with me on that, if we feel the need, I think it would be good to get clarification from FOI in the state, just to make sure you don't make a mistake, we don't make a mistake, we don't have an issue with that. And frankly, our municipality has worked very hard at being very transparent with everything we have. People FOI me, we're even looking at some special software for archiving because of the amount of emails that, but technology is changing, and I understand that. I know Slack, and I know all these, it's always around me, but we just need to make sure that the FOI and the government catches up to progressive technology, because most of the time they're behind on it. So I just want to make sure that
That's a great point.
we're all understanding that it's okay, and that we're not in trouble with it, and that you're not in trouble with it, that your people are not in trouble with it. Innocently enough, it's a good tool, but let's make sure it's not a problem, all right?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a great contact from the state too, specifically for FOI, so I can definitely reach out to him and ask.
Yeah, and then I can share that with the board, saying, this is what they found, this is what we found, we're not we're not gonna have an issue with it, and can we recover it, all right?
Sounds good.
I just have one follow-up question. With 2 out of 4 regular staff sanitarians pending, should something change with either of those individuals, would you just keep us posted? Because I think
Absolutely.
to Jeff's point, we're cautiously optimistic, but we would hate to, find out that maybe a hire didn't come through. I certainly know that happens. Just keep us posted should that change.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be good, and if we do run into difficulties, that's the other thing, if we can let people know that that you can expect a little longer because some staff has left or something, a lot of times that goes a long ways if they know their permit is probably going to be because something has happened, rather than you're always expecting the same performance no matter what happens in your organization. I've experienced that, but sometimes we'll have to say, you have to understand there's a little problem, we are short-staffed, we will get to you, and then I think they're more accommodating than they're just not listening to us.
Yeah.
And I think that will help.
Absolutely. Communication and setting expectations, I think, is key.
And it happens, I get it. It happens in town hall, we lose people and we're trying to, collect taxes or whatever it is. FMLA, who knows what. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next is under new business, paid parental leave policy. This was brought to me by a consideration from HR. It's a benefit for anybody having parental leave, both the father and the mother. Personally, in my life, I did have the ability, and it was almost forced upon me because of my wife's job, that I did end up having to spend quite a bit of time with my children because my wife had to travel internationally. And I do understand the importance of, a lot of times it's just the mother. The mother gets maternity leave. But I also think in this society, in our society, it's also extremely important that fathers bond with their child also. So this was brought to me. It has been looked at by our labor attorney, vetted, some change made, so that it may not be, it should not be abused. Dan is here tonight to talk about, it came out of HR, which is under his department. If there's any question about the parental leave. Everybody's,
The board is aware, we're exempt from the Connecticut Paid Family Leave Act, so we had to do something outside of it, out of that. That's why we went through this.
Approving this tonight makes this go into effect for all town employees?
for all our non-union employees.
The non-collective bargaining.
The collective bargaining units have to bargain into whatever they want, or whatever they feel they need. And that's just how it is. John?
So with that being said, how many people does this affect as a ratio of the town compared to?
Well, it's not gonna affect me,
I mean, yeah,
but we do have young, we have younger people who have come to work here. Frankly, I wanna say this, that one of our positions, the gentleman, they bought a house in Southbury, so, we have a lot of people. And so that would be, if he was to get married and become a father, he would be able to get this leave. And this is part of, when I requested the 2 floaters, part of that was to train them in other areas, so that if we should have someone out for, even if it's FMLA unpaid, it doesn't really matter, that we can help cover that department and not have to run into a problem.
And also, as probably everyone on the board is aware, it's difficult to attract and retain employees these days. So we're trying to get some benefits, and this one seems it's really not a cost to the town, because people are using their sick policy, vacation time, to retain and attract younger employees to come work here.
I think to Dan's point, attracting talent is very difficult in this market. And if, let's say there's a younger arborist that has the option to work in the private sector where they're bound by Connecticut statute that would provide paid leave, or coming to work for a municipality, I think this does make a difference for a young family, which direction they might go. So I certainly wouldn't want to lose somebody who could bring that talent here.
I was just going to ask, because Dan mentioned the state statute that we're exempt from, or municipal employees are exempt from. Was there any discussion or consideration of the other types of paid leave permitted under that statute when coming up with this?
We did not. When we talked to Bill, this was the policy that we came up working with him, the labor attorney, but we did not. And one of the thought process we thought was to actually join into the Connecticut Paid Family Leave. For us to do that, the collective bargaining units would all have to agree to do so. And if they didn't agree to it, we can't do it.
So I would entertain a motion. We've already had a little discussion. I'd be entertaining a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by, made by Justin Betty, I will say that. I have not. Do I have I would like to have a second from the other side of the aisle, if possible. Just to show that we're all.
We all second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I don't think there's anybody opposed, and it carries. Thank you. Next up, nonprofit assistance program. There was a question from the board about how this worked. Dan was involved in that. They came up with the distribution, what we felt was important. I'd go out on a limb and say the ones that got 100% were basically our go-to nonprofits that have served us and directly the people of Southbury, you know, the Needy Fund, the Fuel Bank. They've done a tremendous job. I also want to say that the community has always supported these groups whenever there was they always supported them. When there was a special need, this community has always come through for them. So Dan is here if you have any questions, how they came to it. Not everybody got everything they wanted, not all of the rest, but it was basically divided up.
And the goal was to give as many nonprofits as possible. So we tried, or the committee tried to get everybody that applied something. So when they looked at it, they took, like Jeff said, they took the top 4 for Southbury and gave them 100%. What was left, they divided it equally percentage-wise to all of the other nonprofits. So everyone that applied in time and was, followed all of the had all the qualifications is getting something.
I also want to say that on here, you know, the public may look at this and say, what is the Pink Chair Project? I would suggest before you criticize it, take a look at what they do. They've been around quite a long time. I have met with them. Southbury Garden Club, you know, they maintain the pollinator garden over by Settlers Park, over in there for us, and do other work in the community. So anyway, I'm pretty comfortable with this. I am. Anybody have any questions of Dan?
I was just going to say, great job, I mean, for putting this together and the equitable and not going through and picking and choosing who should or shouldn't get, but just, you know, just taking care of the nonprofits that are in the town of Southbury. And I feel great looking at that list and basically approving this, because a lot of those charitable organizations are people I write checks to. So
Yeah,
it makes me feel good that,
2 organizations we reached out to tell them that, yes, they were over the moon excited about it, you know. So we're gonna hit a lot of great nonprofits in Southbury.
yeah, and I know for 2 of them that I communicate with, they were very grateful. So thank you for making that happen.
No, thank you guys.
Well, exactly.
That's approving it, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And it carries. Thank you, everyone. First Selectmen's report, 23-24 town budget. Last night, after months of department head and board meetings, we presented a fiscally responsible budget to Southbury seniors for a vote. Both the town and Region 15 budgets passed, with the town budget passing by a 3-to-1 margin. Our mill rate has been set at 22.5. I want to thank everyone who was involved in that, in the budget process, and to the citizens of Southbury for coming out to vote and showing interest in our local government. And one of the things I think worked well was we did a presentation in Heritage Village for the people who were interested, explaining what was going on. And I think someone made asked, why haven't we done that in the past? And I still remind people, COVID. We had a lot of restrictions, and remember that there was budgets were passed without. I mean, it was a difficult period. So we're out of that, and we certainly will continue to make sure we reach out to the community when we do budgets and meet in Heritage Village so they can understand, because there's frankly, a lot of misinformation that gets out there about the budget and the numbers. And then I've had people talk to me and they're like, oh, all right. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Police body cams, they're out, they're working, everybody is using them, they're all on. The pickleball court, you know, where I used to work, I was told, put a big piece on, and everybody thinks something's happening. So the big piece was put on, which was the concrete. The small piece, people will wonder why, what are they doing? How come this isn't done? Weather is holding a little bit because of the weather, but also they have to post tension, they have to use things to pull it together, keep the concrete, and that has to cure a certain period of time, and then it has to be tightened up, and then it has to be reset so it's tight so it doesn't come apart, and that's gonna take a period of time to get that to the point where they can surface and keep going, but the big pour was done. And actually, they were touch and go whether they should even have poured that day, and the weather was okay, and the concrete was good, so they didn't have to put it out. But it is, it's a big piece of, I'm excited. We're gonna see what I'm looking forward to the grand opening.
We're gonna have a selectmen tournament?
I think so, we should, yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Is that covered under workman's comp when we, you know, have our next day backaches?
Is this versus the fiscal office? Is that what's happening here?
There's young people in my office, you should be careful.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, no, they're pretty sharp in there. Police Study Review Committee, the Police Study Review is in the finishing stages of its study, and is expected, we should be able to present the data from, and it's on time, in the schedule. Dan is diligently working on some more sophisticated data mining. What is that called? Whatever you're doing. But Dan's working. It's not as simple as people think. I mean, everything is different, you know, where they put the money, so you have to extract it out of their budgets and stuff, so Dan's working on that.
Complicated questions were asked at the last meeting, and we're like, Dan will put
Yeah,
it
yeah,
together.
just hand it to them, yeah. But,
You got all the time in the world now.
budget's over, what are you doing now? Make mention about the Poverty Bridge road closures will be out there, Monday, May 8th, during the day. They're doing some, engineering and some coring and getting some information about that so that the engineers can do what they do. So they will be closed. It'll be on our road alert. It'll be on our website. And Arbor Day, I attended the Southbury Arbor Day ceremonies last Friday, where we celebrated the planting of a new white oak tree at Settlers Park. Thank you for everybody who participated. Eversource was giving out, everybody who attend donated cherry tree and dogwood tree sapling for the people who were there. Maybe more people should attend next year. This is like the 25th year. I think we're one of the longest. And that goes back to Paul and Kathy Palmer, which some may know or not know, but they really brought the Tree City USA to us. And it's pretty cool. And our Historic Tree Commission does a lot of good work. And I think that a lot of our trees and landscaping in town, they've made a difference. So anyway, it's pretty nice. Reports from liaisons. Justin?
None of my groups have met since our last meeting. A couple of them are meeting next week.
Okay. Jason?
Same report. Most of mine are meeting next week.
Okay. John?
The only commission of mine was the Conservation Commission. So a couple of fun details. For Bennett Park, they've, and part of what and I'll just make a quick footnote here, I like listening in and hearing what the Conservation Commission is working on, because they are physically, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, 3 of the things we'll talk about, they physically helping do the work and communicating with the parks and communicating with Department of Public Works, and it is a team effort of volunteers. So it's pretty exciting to watch. But they installed a 25 foot away from the banks in Bennett Park, where some of the erosion is happening, 250 foot of 4-foot-high polypropylene fence to basically keep folks away so that the kind of the natural growth and grass can grow in, keep DPW from cutting it, and created a kind of a no-mow zone there. So that's to protect the riverbank. So if you see any of that activity going on, that's what that is about. Jeannie Pierce Park, and this one's a little different. They like to talk about the beaver there and creating damage and cutting trees, and, you know, we're not allowed to cut trees in Southbury, and they're cutting the trees. But I will say, if for anybody who wants to hike and go check this out, up over the dam there and off to the left, up into the woods, to see what a beaver can do. It's pretty cool to go take a look at. So anybody wants to go take a hike and see what the beavers are up to, some people like it, some people don't, but it's pretty cool. But they are figuring out or trying to work on how to get less trees cut by the beaver.
Can I ask you a question on that? Just out of curiosity, like, do they have a plan? So, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with some of the beaver issues, but like, is trapping happening? Is it relocation? Like, what are the plans there, if that's a problem?
Sending me back with questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you know, but I am curious, and I can follow up with you, you know, kind of
Yeah.
on the side on this, but I'm just curious
It-
what they're throwing around.
And from what I can tell, it's more about, you know, when the habitat is there and the ponds are at different levels and it creates that habitat, that it is about, they're trying to just keep the water flow, keep the beavers from clogging up the overflows so that the water is just flowing, sorry about that, and just creates a habitat that they might go elsewhere. But good question, and I'll have to, I didn't ask that, and they didn't answer that. I
A
don't-
single
I don't
beaver
think.
can take a tree in a day, so that's,
can tell
you
you
know,
what-
if you're out for a couple weeks and you come
Yeah.
back, it makes a big difference.
And it's weird because you see this work, and then the tree is there, and the tree hasn't come down, and they're waiting for it to blow or something, but
They're not quite ready to put it in place.
it's construction. I think they need, the health
They
department
know
wasn't,
one more cut, it's coming down.
the health department wasn't there, so, but Japanese knotwood treatment has been done at Shorts Field. Actually, I should say scheduled for mid-June. Little York, I will say that the Conservation Commission has basically sent us a thank you for taking action and putting together the plan for the parking stickers and trying to curtail the parking. So they did thank us for taking care of that. A little poke, they are looking forward to hearing what we can do about the parking on the streets and just, you know, making it a little, you know, even less there also. So a little bit more work to do there. I told them that that we had asked the Strategic Planning Commission to look into that. Two other things here. Park cleanup, about 25 people were helping there was a park cleanup day. The 25 folks were out with Miss Ingalls and a couple others, and a whole bunch of other great volunteer work. And then, and this actually is just kind of just a check mark on your, there was an encroachment on Scout Road down near the lakeside that somebody has cut down a couple trees and built a little bit of a parking lot on town property.
News to me. If you
And,
see something I need, email
So-
me. I will be in the car, and we will find out. Because there has been someone, I thought okay, it's different because. All right, I'll be down, I will, okay.
so
That.
I'll give Ed the
faux
benefit
pas
of the
to
doubt that he is preparing an email to send to you to
Just
ask
call me
your
on the
advice.
phone and I will be there.
That's end of report.
The last faux pas that happened down there, that will cost the homeowner $25,000 for, I think, 3 or 4 trees that were cut.
And that was part of the conversation, was like, they paid for the first 4 trees. Now there's more done and actually earthwork done with some grading of parking area.
I will be down there tomorrow. Thank you, John.
And I do apologize. I don't know, maybe I missed it, but when you gave your report, questions, the Poverty Road Bridge and doing that work, is that just daytime closing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, during the daytime.
Perfect. Thank you.
Greg?
I was away out of town, so I missed my last set of meetings, but Senior Commission and Energy Task Force meet just a day or two before our next meeting, so I will have an update there, and just want to take a moment to congratulate you, our Director of Finance, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and the whole town on our budget passing. It's great news.
Yeah, it was
A lot of work.
a lot of work, and it's like, are we ready to start again, Dan? I mean, it seems like it's just around the corner. I can tell you this, we are already thinking about the next budget. It's not, we don't wipe it, it's like, okay, what's coming and where can we improve further down the road? But you have to start now, believe it or not. People don't know that, but it actually starts right after it's
We
signed.
joked about it last year, the day after, it's like, okay, here we go, start again.
Holly?
So the Region 15 Board of Ed met on April 24th. Obviously, a lot of anticipation of how the budget would go. I think everybody is probably very relieved that it was a very easy, certainly not easy leading up to it, but that, yesterday was uneventful and things, the people of our town clearly are expressing that they want us to be making these investments. And so a big part of the Board of Ed meeting was the pool study. Lots of discussion, just odd timing that everybody's looking at pools right now, but this was definitely not taken lightly. Many of us went and looked at the underside of the pool in the high school and why that had to be done. It's definitely having some leakage issues and things like that, so I'm sure they're going to be very happy that this is now going to be water under the bridge. Sorry. And aside from that, the superintendent's report, but a lot of it was certainly the pool study, and I'm sure there's that the Board of Ed is very happy as well. And I will extend your congratulations to them.
Just remind me, John, I will tell you a beaver story from years ago, and you'll find it so funny about the beavers. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.